Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Script Club. Happy New Year, yes, Happy New Year. I am Brooke Tardelli. I am the artistic director at Northern Stage and have the great fun of directing Dangerous Space. So, wow, there's so many of you here. It's great. It's really great. Anyone know anything about the story, the play?
I've read the book and I've seen the play.
Oh, of course you have.
The movie.
Seen the movie.
Good. This is Sutton Crawford, who's playing Madame Tourvel. I think we're going to have some other actors join us when they get their lunch and whatnot, so we'll call them out as they show up.
Does she have a permanent resident here?
I'm trying as hard as I can. I'm trying to give her as many different roles as she can possibly fit in the scheme of things. Well, then to start at the beginning. First thing is this play is not performed in French.
Oh, good.
And you don't need to know anything French to enjoy the play.
Oh, good.
We've had a number of phone calls of, is there going to be super titles? No, it's all in English. The source material is a book written in 1782, very scandalous at the time, where it was published as a series and a collection of letters. And the author claimed in his preface that he collected these letters. And the publisher was with this sort of marketing scheme, which of course increased the amount of scandal about it, as if someone was reading the real thing, that this had really happened. It was written right sort of not long before the French Revolution, so our upper classes were decadent, to say the least. This is Alexis, who plays Emily in the play.
Brooke, that's the play you should do, the real thing.
We did it last season. Yes, we sure did. Play that I love. Play that I love. It was published in 4 versions, and it was published tiny, a little smaller than the size of the script. It was published in a 4x6 form in 4 little booklets, because it was considered so scandalous that people had to hide it when they were reading it. And you know, one likes to think that marketing is so modern and up to date, but they sure had it going on with that. The first publishing run was 2,000 copies, and within 3 months they were republishing, which publishing in that era was a lengthy process. And it became very quickly sort of the naughty book for anybody in any of the upper classes to read, based on the fact that they thought it was about somebody. They were all trying to figure out who was it about, whose letters were they, whose name got changed to. You can still get the book very easily. It's translated from the French to English. There's about 6 easy-to-get different translations out there. I think the Oxford translation is the most similar to the play. Might have this slightly wrong. There's about over 400 letters in the total collection. None of the publications use all of the letters, because some of them are a little like, it rained today, and they do skip through those. It tells the story. The central character is the Vicomte de Valmont, and he's quite the player. He has a partner in crime, Marquis de Merteuil. It's interesting because it's letters, nobody quite gives you, they indicate and reference the backstory. We never really know what really happened between these two. Their relationship is very saucy, and the beginning of the play, and the play focuses much more on the central two than the letters do. The letters really follow about 6 or 7 intrigues, whereas the play follows the central intrigue between Valmont and Merteuil and their revenge plot. So Madame de Merteuil has a lover who has decided to end, she is a widow. He has decided to end the relationship because he's going to marry a young girl coming out of the convent, and he would never consider marrying his lover because he was only going to marry a blonde who was a virgin coming out of a convent. Mertoy decides that she's going to ruin him, that she is going to get back at him for all of that. And she turns to her partner in crime, Belmont, and proposes to him that he deflower this identified young virgin so that her ex-lover gets to her wedding night, his wedding night, and discovers that somebody beat him to the door, shall we say.
To the garden.
To the garden, yes, yes. Valmont says no. This a 15-year-old girl, she's got curiosity, she's just gonna roll over. There's no sport in that. And he said, besides, I'm going after this impossible woman. She's devout, she's pious, her reputation is unstained, unscathed. Now that's a challenge. And he says, not only am I going after that, but I don't want her to make a mistake. I want her to believe everything she believes and still not be able to help herself. So Mertoy says, good, well. And it's clear that Valmont and Mertoy have a previous sexual relationship because the premise that is then put forth is that if he succeeds in capturing Tourvel, his prize will be to have a night with Mertoy. And if he loses, well, not quite if he loses, but in the ensuing things, the games of who's going to try to enact revenge on who involves a significant number of partners, shall we say. I should also say that not only is it not in French, there is no explicit nudity in the play. So what they talk about is incredibly racy, but it is not. It's not explicit. It is not X-rated. So through the play is a series of scenes, 19 scenes. The idea that being letters does not feature prominently into the play. But I think that first collection of letters was so scandalous that it spawned over time the play, a number of plays in different languages. There's a Korean version, and not this play done in Korean. An actual Korean writer wrote their own version of it. 4 or 5 different miniseries, England and Australia, Germany. And famously, once the play came out and won sort of all the awards to be won, it was picked up very quickly. The play came out in 1986, and in 1988, famously, Stephen Frears and Milos Forman both decided to make a film. And the play is called Liasons dangereuses. The play was Dangerous Liaison. They wanted to Americanize it as much as possible. Don't be afraid, it's not French. And Stephen Frears called it Dangerous Liaison. Glenn Close, John Malkovich, Michelle Pfeiffer. Milos Forman called it Belmont, with Annette Bening and help me. Oh, Colin Farrell. No, Colin Firth. Colin Firth. Sorry, completely blanked on the name. The films arrived in cinemas within about a month of each other. The Milos Forman film is lengthy, arty, moody, and not quite so naughty, and didn't have quite as big stars at that point. This is before Annette Bening had done American Beauty. She was not a household name. And when you put Glenn Close, John Malkovich, so that film has taken over. When people say, I've seen the film, that's the film. And then, I'm going to say in the 90s, I'll check this, there was a film called Cruel Intentions that was this story, but set in high school, early college, New York City, elite rich. So it's a story that's intrigued people over 200 plus years in every possible different incarnation. Different cultures, different ages, different languages. Catherine Deneuve did in French, 6-part television miniseries. And it's interesting because and I've seen many of these, most of them, almost none of them get it exactly right. So, to me as a director, what's exciting about that is that there's no definitive version. You say, oh, gosh, I love that actor, their character was great, oh, but that didn't work. I didn't believe this one. So, for a director, and why the piece continues to be done and just sort of rediscovered, is because there's still out there in the future the definitive production, which is exciting and challenging. As many of you know, we did a production of A Walk in the Woods 2 years ago, and it recently, in October, transferred to the Tricycle Theatre in London. And I was at the opening, and Miriam, who played the American, who is, I think, French by descent, French because she lived there, not quite sure, but is a great personal friend. And I love her, and she's a little baddie, so you never quite know. She's like, oh, they're my friend. I'm like, well, because you stood in an elevator with them? You never quite know, yeah? And she said, oh, you've got to come to the opening, and my friend, the playwright, Christopher's going to be there. And I was like, okay. And my other friend, who's an American director, I'd be like, you can meet her. Okay. Okay. And I met her American friend, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm just going to hold, okay. Well, it turns out the friend, Christopher, the playwright, was Christopher Hampton, who wrote this play. At the opening night, standing with Alan Rickman, who was the original Belmont in the London production. So, you have that moment where you say, this is a fluke, I need to get every question answered right now. And at the time, I had cast John Hayden as Belmont, who was our Hamlet, he was in 39 Steps. But I hadn't yet cast his female partner, Mertoy. And in many of the films, and in some of the stage plays, the age relationship between these two people has varied by about 20 years, which I don't think serves the play well. I think it serves the play well if they're really right with each other. But there are characters that have to be younger. There's about 2 younger notches, and there's about 2 older notches. So they've got to sit right in the middle of that play, of the sort of the age range of characters. 9 principal characters. So I cast everybody but Mertoy, and so I made the box of, okay, she has to fit in this box. She can't be younger than these ones or older than these ones. She's got to be right there. And she has to be John Hayden's equal. And those of you who saw John in Hamlet or 39 Steps know that he's very magnetic. He's very quick thinking. He's very strategic. So it makes him an exciting actor to watch. This had to be a female who was his equal, his actual sparring partner. That the audience didn't have any feelings of, oh, it's clearly his story. It had to be neck and neck and neck. And John is an actor I personally enjoy working with. But he's also a bit younger than the role is often cast. So in meeting with Christopher Hampton, I quickly confessed, I cast it younger than you normally do. I think I already messed it up. And it was, and Alan Rickman, who was standing there, said, clearly younger than I am. I didn't mean that. So Christopher gave some incredibly interesting insights where he said, please don't direct the play I wrote, because these were my relationships. It has to be the relationship with people on the stage. Tell their story. These are the words, but which is incredibly rare for a playwright to say, because it's his work. We are only so lucky to receive it and try to struggle to do it justice. So to have that sense of permission from a living author, from arguably his most famous play, was surprising and exciting. And it was not long after that I said, okay, I know exactly who Mertoy should be, and cast Catherine Mary, who you will know from Boeing Boeing, the German stewardess, as well as the woman, the one in yellow, as well as in 39 Steps with John. Filling out the cast, because the material is really racy and the innuendo needs to be thick, and there's a lot of the relationships that are very predatory, and it's on a wide range of ages in the women. I thought it was really important that the actors, I don't want to say that they knew each other or that they knew us, but that they would be here and be completely comfortable. When you audition an actor and sort of cast just in that room for 10 minutes, you know what their talent is. You don't know who they are or what their nerves are, what their background is, what their issues are. And this play could push a lot of buttons on some people's issues. So this is Louisa, who's playing Madame Rosamond. Louisa was here in Driving Miss Daisy a couple years ago. So I said, you know, this one might be the right one to kind of put together a group that, if they hadn't worked directly together, had known of each other's work, crossed over, met at auditions, and that had a real confidence and trust in Northern Stage. So that there would be a total freedom in the sense of play that the plot demands. So all 8 out of the 9 actors have been with us before, and one of them is new. Madame D. Pelletier is new with us. In young Cecile, the young convent blonde girl who Gercourt has now decided to marry, who Bertoy has decided to ruin. It's her. She plays Dee plays her mother. So it's wickedly funny, and there's a very surprising shift. It's going to last about 10 to 15 pages of the text, where it's really interesting how quickly this sense of decadence and this sense of revenge without any sense of consequence. There's a perception, there's a blindness towards that act at whatever price. And there are people who like each other and play well with each other. And the game goes too far. And a whole series of dominoes happen very quickly at the end. But obviously they've been mounting over the 2 hours that we've been with them. And the audience is complicit because we've been laughing along. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. Oh, I didn't think that was going to happen. So it's a very, I won't say it's like a surprise twist ending. You see it all coming. You just don't recognize, nor do the characters, the sense of the weight of the consequence. In a society where social reputation was incredibly important, where women did die of a broken heart, where men, when they decided mano a mano to have an argument, it was with swords. So yes, we do get a sword fight in the end. So it's very fascinating to work on that. It's also fascinating to work on a play that we hear the same event. We see, let's say, a scene between Valmont and the woman, the pious woman he's trying to ruin for sport. We see that scene. And then in the next scene, we hear him retell it to his partner in crime, Bertoy. And the shift of perception, what we see versus what Valmont describes and what he sees that scene to have been, is very interesting. And I think that's, it's not unique to the play, it is in the letters, where we hear the same event told from 3 different people. But that sense of perception and consequence, and when the bargain is initially made, it's very clear that the people engaged in that are willing to pay the price of the delight of ruining this target. But because we see this in different ways, and it's withheld to the end of the play, it's very interesting how our perception and understanding of these characters that are charming, are delightful, are humorous, have a lot of hubris, how that all kind of shifts very quickly at the end. So I don't think anybody was here. Oh, Stuart, you were here for a bit of the first read through. I think there was a perception that this is a meaty, heavy, serious play, and it's as witty as a coward. There are moments that are as funny as Boeing. So to have that kind of ride in the beginning, it's very sexy. It's going to be a very, very steamy, midwinter, turn up the heat kind of play. Someone on the staff did say we're going to have to pass out fans at the intermission. It's unlike, I don't know another play written in the same, there's lots of plays that have sex in Boeing, for example. But it's played at. And there's obviously plays that have nudity, where you're actually possibly seeing something specifically physical. But I don't know a play that deals more and debates more the idea of sex. And not necessarily the sexes, but how is sex power? What's the difference between sex for women, sex for men? What's the difference between love? Where is the difference between a marriage and affair? Why one does one, why does the other? And again, with any judgment or consequence withheld. So you see things that perhaps in some, we joke, we say if Edward Albee wrote this play, there would be screaming and there would be tears and there would be, huge angst. So you would pass judgment on, he shouldn't have cheated on her because that's wrong to do if you're married. There'd be a moral perspective. And in this, that morality does not enter in until the last page and a half, when there's a real shift of understanding. So I think that's kind of fun. The play has a very, obviously we know it's a piece of theater, we buy a ticket, we sit down, the play happens. But it does feel like it's a historically accurate story. And that these were real people. And whether they were the real letters or they were just, it was just put into letters for the gimmick of publishing this. But I was thinking earlier that that idea of writing a story that you claim to be real, which isn't. And you choose a form, i.e. letters, as opposed to narrative, that appears to be stolen. Real things that someone stole and then showed to the world. And you think, there was a film about, 10, 15 years ago called The Blair Witch Project. And it was a huge sensation because they said we were out in the woods and this is the real videotape. And it was handheld, and it was made for about, 5 cents, and it became a massive sensation because everyone went, oh my God, it's real. No, it's not. Yes, it is, because look, very similar. So you don't get Blair Witch without getting sort of this collection of letters. And it's fascinating how those same forms and structures and gimmicks, if you will, have repeated to the same result. The debate about Blair Witch, no different than the debate about are these or are they not the real letters. One of the things that, please interrupt if you have questions along the way. From a directing perspective, the play is set in 1790, absolutely in the period. So the costumes are significant, and all of the characters, for the most part, are dressed in the grandest style of the day. And yet, this is not in verse, it's not in a dialect, it's not in period language, and the relationships are incredibly modern. Almost soap opera-esque, like sort of hyper-real. And that's an interesting contrast, because you put on a corset and a wig and a dress that's 5 feet wide, and you automatically want to speak like this. And it's an interesting, it's an idea that we're playing with in depth with the cast, that the world we see visually is to the T, absolutely to the period. But what we hear orally is completely modern and completely naturalistic. And I think that creates some of the really interesting dynamic tension in the play. Because you say, oh, these are people from a long time ago. This is a story about some other time, place. The rules, okay, they're completely talking as if they were sitting here in this room with us. And if you were to see an Oscar Wilde play, it would be in the period. And so it's an interesting tension that I think really helps the play, because visually it feels alien to us, but everything we hear is completely sort of our tongue. And so I think the characters, it does two things. One, it lets us off the hook in any moral response. It's not us, that was about other people in a different time. But it never feels foreign or remote to us. So we're both allowed to be off the hook, but not distanced. It's what a lot of productions, when you do a modern Shakespeare, you try to make it not so alien by modernizing it, but then usually it's modernized in language and look. I don't know many plays that are that polarized in opposition. And it's very hard for the actors, because they're in such physical formality and have to change the way they move, and yet don't go to the dialect, don't get that very proper speech. And when they do slip into that, instantly these people, there's this huge barrier in space made between us and them. It becomes about something other and something out there. So it's going to be a challenge through rehearsal to keep, to create the greatest tension between those two things in opposition. They are saying it's a little bit like patting your head and rubbing your stomach while like jump roping all at the same time. The costumes are a real challenge. The play is very, they talk about game. They play a lot of games. The opening scene, in fact, has a card game. The closing scene has a card game. So our two principal characters, Mertoya and Belmont, are very strategic. And nothing is said without having, they're always like 3 moves ahead. You've heard it, chess players are often said, they're playing the game 3 moves ahead. These two people are doing that the whole time. So it's important that that we keep the audience with them. So the audience never gets lost and wait, what's going on? Why is she saying that to him? Why is she behind the curtain? What? So that strategy and that game and those moves have to be really clear to the audience. And right now we're in the process of, we're not in full costumes, we're in just corsets and rehearsal skirts. But the distraction of all of the business of the costume and the wig and the this and that and the other muddies the clarity of plot. So it's one of the specific challenges of this play to keep that the strategy of those intrigues very clear and not let it get sort of swallowed by the mechanics of costumes, wigs, and so on and so forth. There's been a few funny things, like the one main door to the room is 3 foot wide, and Mertoy's dress is 5 feet wide, and you know, those good kind, like, oh, the perfect chairs, they're beautiful, they're right, oh, they've got arms and we can't sit down. So, you know, there's all those typical production things you figure out. The play itself is written, as I said, 19 scenes, every one of them in a different location. However, one of the most delightful things a director can ever read is that the playwright says, hang on, I'm not going to find it, am I? Well, basically what he says is, it's written to be all these scenes, but each scene goes sort of like dominoes. And so he says, don't hold up the play to move the furniture. So it's interesting because Christopher Hampton, both from actually having the opportunity to talk to him, and then what he says about this play is, keep it rolling. So to that regard, we have what's called a unit set. There is one chaise, there's one table, time of year, location, whether it's Paris or the country, and whose house it's in is irrelevant to the sort of the strategy and plot. So we aren't changing that. In true form, it takes place over about 9 months, a little bit longer, 10 months. So it's summer and winter. All of that is irrelevant, and I thought that it would kind of put a spotlight on to really the focus of the audience on the intricacies of that revenge strategy, those gamesmanship, to let's be in the same place, let's for the most part be in the same clothes. There's also a budget reality of these costumes are, 50 yards of fabric per dress, which we are not building. So the time required to change costume and the amount of people required is staggering. So we've made some decisions like that, and I went a little further because I said, okay, so we're in a salon. Is it some of there are characters in the play that become collateral damage to Mertoy's revenge plot, and those characters are trapped by the incredible skill of Valmont to enact this plot. They're outplayed, and they are trapped. So one of the Theater 101 is when you say character's trapped, make no doors in the set. Don't give them anywhere to go. That's pretty obvious, so we like to be a little more sophisticated than that. And I thought it was that the trapping is psychological, and it's more devastating if there's 100 ways to get out of the room, but they can't get out. Now there isn't 100 ways to get out of the room, but what I became really interested in is who are the people that find revenge so delicious. These characters are extreme, but they're not people. They're all people we will recognize, and anybody coming, any audience member, regardless of how strong a moral center you have or not, will recognize every one of these archetypes as a piece of themselves. Whether that just means you had a thought you really wanted to revenge something that someone did wrong to you, or you actually did it. They're not alien. These people are people we recognize, people we believe as realistic. The extreme to which they go in enacting that, in many cases, is much further than, that's what makes it theatrical as opposed to real life. So they do go a bit further, but they're not alien. And so I thought, gosh, the character of Valmont and Mertoy are animalistic in that way, very, very base level. But gosh, we're in such a mannered, structured, visual world. So the set, became very important to me to contrast that sense of the natural world, the natural animal behavior of human, and the learned, cultured, contained world. We had the contained world by virtue of the costumes, which, because they're so large, you put 4 women in 5-foot dresses, that's your whole set. You see nothing else. Poor Bradmaster said, "You're making a big deal about whether I have the feet on this table right?" He's like, "No one's going to see the feet of the table because all the skirts are so big." So what I said was I wanted to play, I said, so how do I get that sense of the natural world, that sort of animal quality? So what we've done is we've made this salon, upstage center, exit or enter out into a large conservatory, which also would have been appropriate to the period, so that you had this, and we'll see if we achieve this, but this essence of jungle, this essence of thriving, wild nature, natural life. So that in a couple scenes people have to hide because you're in the wrong bedroom with the wrong person showing up. And there's no door slamming. There's no door slamming. Like, I thought, wouldn't it be great, in the play it says, go behind the screen, go behind the curtain. But then that person becomes invisible to the audience and we sort of forget that they're there. The actors in the scene should not know they're there. Well, one of them does because it says, go hide. But if the audience is in on it. So we made this glass conservatory wall so someone can go into the garden. And the person who's asked to hide, almost every case, is Valmont, who's our most animal, most of the natural world beast in the play. Not only will he be visible to us, but he's also going to be in that natural world. And I think based on how we light that sort of greenhouse garden environment, it will either be beautiful, bird chirpy, sunlighty, let's take a stroll. It's not too chilly out, and we see them parade out. Or it's going to be in the dark of night where the shadows make that seem a little more dangerous. And so our ability to use time of day and angle of lighting, so if you light something from the front, it looks the size it is. But if you light it from a different angle, it casts a giant shadow. So it becomes sort of larger than life looking. We can exploit that in scenes where Valmont's going in for the prey. He's really going after this woman who is like a little sparrow in, you know, the bestial night who's gonna get eaten. And we know it's coming because we've heard his plot. We're like, oh, run away, run away.
Don't go up the stairs.
Yes, yeah, don't. So it's very, that's part of what, sort of one of my favorite things about theater is being able to make the environment a real character in the play, and how to exploit that to provide, in a way, subtext. So I don't know that any of you, without hearing me say this, would say, oh, well, when they changed the angle of the lighting on the plants, they became more menacing. But you'll innately feel it. It will feel like, things just shifted a bit. I like to say that lighting in theater is like a score in film. It tells the audience what to feel. I mean, yes, it makes you see their faces, but it tells you what to feel in the way that a score will say this is romantic, or, you know, the famous da-da, 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 da-da. We all know that it's like, uh-oh, here comes the shark. You know it. You don't have to know what the movie is, and you hear that music, you're like, something bad is about to happen. And they say people who are afraid of scary movies just watch without the sound. And there's nothing, it's benign, completely rendered, impotent, nothing. And in contrast, a romantic scene on a film without the score, ain't no magic there. It's like, oh, and then also you put the music in and you say, oh, well. So lighting does that in theater. In the most basic way, it tells you who to look at, because those people are in the light, that one's not. Or it tells you that it's day or night. So it doesn't give you information, but it also gives you mood and emotion. And again, it's not something that you articulate, but those design elements highlight and expose the ideology beyond and the psychology beyond just what's being said. And some of those things are very archetypal. Costumes is the same thing. Someone shows up in a red dress, she's trouble. Someone shows up in a white dress, she's a virgin. There it is. And it's very hard to use those. And again, is it yellow or orange? I don't know close. That doesn't quite give, but there are some very strong colors that really, they're so embedded in us culturally that we just go, oh, that's what that is. And it's almost impossible to put a virgin in a red dress. You just don't buy it. No matter what. They could be acting up a storm, you just gotta go, I don't know. And what an audience does is go, I didn't believe that actor. They weren't a good actor. They were miscast. When in many cases, it's a design idea gone wrong. So you've got, you know, this range of women in this play, and so because of the scope of costumes, they're costumes that are rented. And it's because we have a huge costume stock, but we don't do enough shows in this period to go, oh, let's use the yellow dress. So in a way, you're dealing with a color palette limited by what is available to you. So for the costume designer, trying to get that exposure of the nature of an individual by creating the visual that's accurate to the period, the right size for the girl, the guys are easier, in the budget, and communicate those themes is, to me, what separates a costume designer from someone who just puts some clothes on people and someone who is a designer, capital D. Which Sarah Covage, who's doing this, did our Amadeus and a whole bunch of others. Anybody?
Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet. What else? Like lots. She's doing lots of shows here. So she's and she works in New York on Broadway quite a bit, and she's just fallen in love with the fact that we really want design to be responsible for storytelling, not just putting clothes on people. Question over here.
That whole thing is just fascinating to me, that the design choices that you're going to make and your designer is going to make are constrained by our perceptions.
Absolutely.
Right.
But we're here to manipulate your perception.
Yes, you are. It's just, I love that notion.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing on a stage is ever arbitrary. There is nothing just turned up like that. Every single actor who's cast, down to their hair color, their height, their age, their texture, the color of the set, the materials of the set, the construction of the set, everything has had hours of conversation. Yeah.
I would add that in a way they're constrained by our perceptions, but in another way they're empowered by our perceptions, because you get to work with those.
I mean,
and magnify what you've done.
I think that's part of the game of making theater, is when does it serve the play? And directors have different opinions. Many directors, we call them our high art directors, serve their vision, and audience be damned. And that doesn't mean that they're a bad director. Sometimes you walk into something and you just go, I don't know what this is, but it's incredible. And you're completely taken out. I don't even understand it, and I'm so caught in it. That's usually something that someone is, the odds board just went, and everything just shifted because you went, but the red dress was the virgin. What does that mean? And you're left with this Kim Sullivan, who's playing Cecile, the young convent virgin. Be ruined. And yes, she'll be blonde in the show. Or there are directors who serve their vision, and there are directors who are, obviously there's a billion different kinds of directors, but primarily two schools where the director is really intrigued with the framing of the audience. It's particularly hard in a thrust because you can't get the whole audience to see the same moment at once. Everyone's seeing a different play, which is the great thing about it, except for when you want the moment that we all see it at once. In Annie, when she shows up in the red dress, there's only one place she can come from. She can only come from center. And she's at center, and she's got to get all the way out on the stage as fast as possible because the people in the front, those people all the way in the front, so I can just see before these people. Really hard in comedy because you want one laugh, one ha-ha, not ha-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha. So yeah, there's another question here.
Now, what is this play? Is it a tragedy? Is it a comedy? Is it a farce?
It's delicious, and it's wicked, and I think, and you will laugh a lot through it, and you may be a little devastated at the end. I think you will all leave the play defining it somewhat differently, but I have a hunch that you'll define it as a comedy.
Really?
Well, structural, I'll tell you why I say that. I mean, basically, I preface that with, yup. It's only the last 10 pages where it really turns, where you get the sense of consequence, and out of 114 pages, there's a lot more that you love, a lot more time in the 2-hour experience. The majority of your time is in this is delicious and wicked, and aren't they naughty, but I kind of love them. To the, oh, that's not funny anymore. So you spend more time in that. But if I pitch this correctly, you'll be laughing all night and devastated with, oh, God. So you get the best of both. I don't find it to be a depressing play. There's a lot of plays that are drama that are depressing. It's not a happy ending, but I don't think it's depressing. But look at Hamlet. Some people would say it's a tragedy and it's really depressing at the end of it. People would say it's a tragedy, but my God, that word was so full of life. You don't leave the theater like you want to go slit your wrists. Which some O'Neill plays, you might be like, oh my God. There's just no hope in this world. But it's interesting because just in plotting, you take your two hours. What percentage of time is in which world?
Brooke, could I make a comment, though?
Of course.
It's 25 years ago, and I still have a faint sense of revulsion about this play.
I have looser morals, apparently.
I wonder whether you're dealing with the revulsion factor, though. I mean, you do want people to come see the silly thing.
Yeah.
That's a damn phrase.
It's interesting. If we all, okay, I'm not going to use Annie as an example. Let's take something like Hamlet. And let's say we all saw the same production on the same day. And then, 10 years later, we got together and said, what was the play? What was the defining visual? What was the defining moment? What's that moment you're like, I remember when he turned to her and said. We would all, that imprint of that moment that represent, you remember the whole play or whatever, but you remember the arc of the plot, but that moment, that almost like photograph in your mind, we would all have a different defining moment. I was fortunate enough, and because you do these things at college, I did a production assisting the chair of the department who directed the collection of letters. And they did them actually from the letters. It was divided into part A, B, and C. All parts were 3 hours long. One night was A, next night was B, next night was C, and on Sunday you did 9 hours of monologues, which you do in college and you should. But when I said, oh gosh, I think this is the year for Dangerous Liaison, a play that I loved for years, fascinating. I find it just completely fascinating. I remembered what happened to everybody at the end. Like when in the final scene, you say, this one went here and this one's here, and it's like a real quick little plot wrap up. But the imprint that I had was of the sexiness, and I don't necessarily mean in a lust way, but in a like, God, it's great to play tennis with the best person who get the ball back to you the best. That was the imprint, the major, like that's what that stuck with me with the play. How lucky they were to have each other. What they were doing was wicked, but God, I bet it felt good to be them. They just, they really found, it was a match of equals. And, I think in life, wildly ambitious, confident, hubristic people don't often have equals. And so to see that is, so you were left with a different impression. But I imagine many of you will have different ones than we're talking about. Yeah.
Since you say we're your best advertisement, what are we going to say when we get out? Are we, what are we going to?
You're gonna say you love it, run, don't walk, buy 10 more tickets. That's what you're gonna say. Well, it's interesting because these characters are immoral, for the most part. Not everyone in the course of the play, but many of them. The ones that we're following. And some people will have, as humans in the world, have a very specific set of parameters of right and wrong. Some people will say, these people are bad and they're wrong and it should be put on stage. Other people will say, they're bad and they're wrong, but that's what's so good about seeing it because it tells you why you shouldn't be like that. Other people are going to say, it was so fun and naughty and wicked and God, it was great to get all heated up in the middle of the winter. What a great evening out. How fun. Some people will leave chuckling about the wickedness of these people. You see so many different relationships. Mother-daughter, sort of ex/current/we're not sure, maybe in the future lovers. You see the young lovers, their first flush, where the older people are like, oh God, they were alone for 2 hours and he managed to hold her hand for 5 seconds. And they get frustrated with that, but you see that adoration. You see the older, wiser man seduce the young girl who doesn't know what that is. You see all these different versions, and I think, I'm sure everyone will identify with one character more than another. But because I think you see so many shades of this thing between this male-female sexual identity, how do we all work together, I think the ideas that it puts in, you'll be thinking about for days. It'll be very easy to say, some people will go right to, they were right and they were wrong, and that one was innocent and that one was guilty, and that's that. But they will have missed the heart of play. Because I don't, it's interesting, in the literary criticism there's a whole school of debate that said, this is a morality play because it tells you how not to be. That never quite got traction. Meaning that it's a worthwhile conversation, but it never really took hold as that's the definitive ideology of what the play is. So I think you leave, well, it's sexy, so you leave a little, I hope. But I think you also leave with a lot of replaying of why did he need to do that? Why are they like they are? Why did she allow that to happen? Why did he respond that way? They're very complex people in a way that doesn't make you feel like, I don't get it. But it really inspires a curiosity. And you don't get all the backstory on all these people. You don't know how Valmont and Mertoy met. You don't know why this person got to there. One of our characters dies of a broken heart. Well, we're now medically advanced to know that people don't actually die of a broken heart, so what was that about? Was it what we would call depression? Did they say she died of a broken heart, but was it suicide? Was she really driven to that? So I think you're really left with a great amount to chew on in a good way. And not in a way of like, I didn't understand it, I still have to figure it out, but in a it's very provoking. Yeah.
I suspect some of us will also have to deal with our secret pleasure at watching amoral behavior and wondering how much we could have gotten away with.
Or how much you think nobody knows.
Right, yes.
Maybe they do. Yes?
You mentioned earlier that in other productions, whether film or stage, somehow missed it. Can you have some examples and why you think they missed it?
I think the actions of Valmont, our male lead, are the most likely to be disliked. We won't like some of the choices he makes. But we have to not be able to take our eyes off him. Know he's wrong and bad and love him all the more for it. That sense of naughtiness. John Malkovich in the film innately isn't so likable. He plays the guys that nobody likes. I hear it's not true of him in real life. So I think you really side with Glenn Close, with Mertoy. She's an actress, she always plays the characters we like. So you've already set up, again, the audience perspective. Mm-hmm. The audience comes in going, oh, like her, don't like him. And then he's playing a character that a little harder to like his choices. So I go, that's not putting the audience in the best place of debate. What's his name? Keanu Reeves plays Danceny, the young male, sort of virgin, innocent young music teacher in the film. He plays all the dumb characters. Like, he's good at dumb. He's like Surfer California dude. It's his type. You know, these all people have types. And he's playing the dumb guy, but then we completely discount him as having any merit or worth. And I think he has to, then you don't care so much when things go badly for him. And I think it's a better position for the audience to have to navigate that. In the film Velmont, which was Annette Bening and Colin Firth, who I adore, I think he's extraordinary. He's not wicked.
Yeah.
There's nothing wicked about him. You trust everything he does and says. You're like, yeah. You're like on board with him. But this is a character you're meant to go, oh, I don't know. So the whole tension of, is he getting away with it? It's like, he can't lie. He could tell a lie if his life depended on it. Annette Bening, I think as an actress, has a real friskiness of character and a real wildness and unpredictability that we find really, we're kind of like, what's she going to do next? She really draws you, you know, the film American Beauty. You kind of can't believe who this woman is, but you're so, it's like watching a car accident, you're so fascinated. In her younger day, and she was quite young when she did the film, that sort of unpredictability came across as not intelligent, like dumb girl, giggly. And so here's this woman who's supposed to be an elite strategist. They're like, I don't know about that. Laura Linney just revived this on Broadway last year, and it opened and closed quite quickly. She's not extrovertedly sexual. She's someone you like, a terrific actor, but you don't know that she, so you just kind of go, and yet all of these versions are really good. You know what I mean? None of them are bad movies, but that's why I say when you kind of go, you haven't quite got it right. And I think that goes to Christopher Hampton's comment about, don't do my play. It's who you've got in that room. It's them. It's not these people. This is the sequence. This is like the code. But you've got to make them, you got to make that like that humming between them. And that's giving me a little flag that we're at time. I've been like babbling on and on.
May I ask a question? Where is this going to be shown? Because we've all seen a show right here today, which we're very grateful for. And a preview that is we're very grateful for. But where is this going to be
If
seen?
you go on the Northern Stage website, there's a link. We have a Blip TV account, which is an online TV. So basically all these programs, once they're edited and put together, are available to watch on demand. So anyone who hasn't been here has access to these, the opportunity of benefit of lectures. As our Athena lectures are also on there. So if you go to our website, and all the ones from history are there. So if you're away, you're out of town, you missed one, you can always catch them. There is a slight delay between being here and when you pick it up. And sometimes sound isn't the best, but you know, you can get it. Yeah, Hunt.
Oh, I wonder if the actors might just say a few extra words.
Oh, sure, gosh, I
about the
was babbling
play.
on and
I
on
always
and
like
on.
to hear what the actors have to say, what their impressions are, and how they might adjust what you're saying to what they feel about the play. Something. Sorry, something on your face. So.
Make it good.
Would your parents want to see it?
My parents will definitely, sorry, I have my corset on still because it's really difficult to get off. My parents will absolutely want to see it. My parents are interesting people, so. But it's definitely a play it's hard to do and something to really bite into, which is what Brooke was saying, with because it's what their choices are and why they make their choices are complicated. It's not, this is why I say this and that's very clear, and because I love God, I'm going to act this way. It's, my character loves God, but she doesn't know what to do with herself, and she blames herself for a lot of things. So it's been really fun to do this play because it's complicated. You know, people are complicated, and that's why it's exciting to actually play people who don't have one thought and are extremely complex and multifaceted. So yes, my family will love seeing it. Doing my lines with my grandfather, a little strange. So that's that.
Thank you, Sally.
What I think is interesting is we're sitting around the table.
Stand up, please.
Sorry. What I thought was interesting is that this is now, middle of day 3, and already there's such intimacy between the cast that there's much more permission than you would think should be available on meeting each other for 72 hours, which is exciting. And what's interesting too is that, there are 2 more women in the play. It's really the women and John, who plays Belmont. And it's interesting that there's such specific slices of women. And it's interesting as a woman to kind of look at that, and we're all married to some extent, and what that means and how each of us deal with love, and also with the structure and formality of the time and place and what's okay and what's not okay. I can't stand on this side of the room and walk to that side unaccompanied. I'm a woman. And so that's an interesting dynamic too among ourselves to, oh no, that's getting in more toys territory, I'm not that girl. Okay, so that's an interesting and fun dichotomy of finding your shade of woman. And I'm, of course, a whore. And my parents are coming in, please.
Well, I play the older woman who's been around, and Louisa, as the real woman, has been around, or so, at least nearby. And I think that I would say about the play is the same thing that my character says, which is nothing surprises me, it just that surprises me how little the world changes. And I think that there is something in this play that is terribly valid in our world, and art is there to reflect what our world, our society, all of the various aspects of it are. And I think that as Brooke says, everyone's going to have a different reflection. But I think there's some very valid things there, and the manipulation, the aggression, the cruelty of human beings has not changed. And this play, I think, demonstrates it and gives us a chance to look at it in another time, yet reflect on our own time.
And I think that my parents, although not with us anymore, I think would have adored it. They love to be challenged.
I'm playing Cecile, and going after what Louisa mentioned, Cecile is blossoming, coming out of a convent for the first time, and she's only 15, and yet she is faced with manipulation and power, and she's been in this structured life. And what we talked about is, I just put my corset on for the first time, which is really going to change and color everything, because you are boxed in. But yet at 15 she has dreams and desires, and she wants to taste all of these things, and she's manipulated and likes it but knows it's wrong, and we are faced with that every day, and at 15 and younger. So yeah, I'm delighted to be in the room with all of you.
And your parents?
My parents, I did run lines with my father, which was pretty funny. I'm not going to do that anymore, but you'll see why. They're delighted. And intrigued.
And as a total anecdote, as many of you may know, this is Northern Stage's 15th year, and Annie is our 100th production. And the reason is the only time in history we have brought a play back, and it's because it was our first Christmas musical. And we first met Kim 15 years ago as one of the orphans in Annie. So it's really nice to have this come full circle.
I met her in kindergarten.
Kindergarten, yeah. So she's off living in New York, and so we were able to bring her back up because it's a role that's perfectly suited to her, and boy, sure does have a nice feel-good factor to that. And she does say she still remembers all the Annie choreography, so if one of the orphans goes down, she's ready. One final question.
Wouldn't we enjoy this play more if it was in period language?
Nope. Because it would feel like it was about someone else, and you'd be in a position to judge.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. It needs to feel like, ooh, that could be me. Ooh, I thought about that once. Oh, yeah, I did that. That went really badly for me, too.
It's like we're at a costume party and watching a costume.
And the costumes are
Gorgeous.
And on that note, we're going to go back upstairs and try and get the people in their costumes. You've got to buy your tickets. You've got to keep our theater strong and keep all these exciting programs out there and available. And come all the way through the winter. We got 4 more shows, so we need you all and all your friends and neighbors and relatives. So thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next time.